Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. What are your strengths and/or challenges when it comes to working with people who are different than you? I know one concept that I've been taught in working with others who are similar or different as a parent or perhaps as a leader is about how to create an effective balance of challenge and support, meaning that we're challenging those we love and have accountability for to be and achieve their best. And at the same time, we're providing them the support they need to do the same. And figuring out that balance can be so challenging, especially when the person you're interacting with is in a different generation. And I think that's whether you're a coworker, a friend, a leader, a child, or even a parent. And several years ago, some colleagues and friends of mine and I were invited to write a book chapter on generations at work. And at the time, we concluded that, and I'll read from it, increased understanding and sensitivity to differences may lead to a more inclusive work environment. And that is my hope for this podcast. And I think you'll hear that in what you hear from our guest, which is there may be differences in generations, but good principles and practices that help us to listen, to learn, to honor, and be sensitive to others work for generations and lots of other categories of differences. So I'm excited that you all will get to hear from someone who has been close to the generational research in the recent years and also spends lots of time with other generations. She also happens to be one of my besties. She's been here before and she's back again by popular demand. So you're going to get to hear a conversation I had with Dr. Rosalyn Pitts-Clark. Dr. Roz is a Georgia and Pennsylvania licensed psychologist, a school certified psychologist, and the sole proprietor of Pitts Psychological Services, where she specializes in childhood and adolescent diagnostic services, and she is amazing. In addition, Dr. Pitts-Clark works for the Atlanta Public School System, and she is also a freelance diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and a fantastic speaker, where she consults with various corporate and educational organizations in an effort to help them meet the ever-changing needs of a diverse population. Dr. Pitts-Clark currently appears on Atlanta's ABC affiliate, WSB TV, where she provides on-air insight regarding mental health, emotional wellness, relationships, parenting, race, racism, as well as career and school success. We do our best to keep this conversation on the professional side, but when you've known someone for 30 years, it goes where it goes. And in the midst of that, Dr. Ross shares some outstanding advice for working across generations. I am so glad you've joined. Enjoy.
Now available, You Deserve to Love Your Job. How to find your purpose and enjoy your life. You may not have learned this growing up, but you deserve to love your job. You will spend more time at work than in any other activity in your life, and you deserve to love it. Research tells us that people who love their work are twice as likely to enjoy their life. This book will help you create a blueprint to help you fulfill your purpose, love your job, and live the life you were designed to live. Now available at Amazon.
Thank you all so much for joining today's podcast. Today you are in for a treat because my girl, my JMU roomie, my 757 ace, and for those who don't know, that's area code, my back in the day club partner, which I don't talk to Lauren about a lot, is back. And in season one, I don't even know if you know this, Rosalind, but in season one of our most popular episodes was the episode that we had together with Natasha Palmer, a friend of ours, about making and maintaining adult friendships. So people love that episode.
Oh.
So thank you for coming back to the podcast to talk about a topic that I know you've discussed with other people, other organizations, which is so interesting to me about communicating, partnering, working across and with different generations. So welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And I'm glad we get to talk about this because I think about, working, partnering, communicating across generations comes up in so many contexts. So certainly as parents, it comes up. I can't tell you how many times Lauren says, don't say that. If I'm using slang, slang of the day, which by the way, she always thinks I get from you because she knows you work with young people. So she's always like, did you get that from Miss Rosalyn? But certainly it comes up in parenting context, but it also comes up in workplace, because for many of us, probably our work may be one of the most diverse environments we encounter on a regular basis. Community organizations, I think about my life group, which has at least 5 generations represented. So it is common. Like it's a common, whether we could call it a benefit we get to work across generations or a challenge, but it's common. So just in general, what do you think about what are generations? Why do they matter? Like kick us off into the topic.
So I love this topic, one, because it's really changed my life and my perspective because I had always seen myself as the kind of young, cool, hip psychologist. And then I had to realize that is not me anymore.
Hmm.
I am a senior career psychologist and looking to move myself out of this career within the next 10 years. So when I look at a new generation of people coming in, they look like babies to me.
Mm,
And what I realized is that I was not holding their value, their opinions, their thoughts in high esteem like I was holding someone who was in my age bracket or had the same level of experience. And I wondered, are other people having the same issue? How is it impacting those of us who are, we're technically Gen X versus those that are millennials and Gen Zs? How is it impacting day-to-day work environments? And so I wanted to dig a little bit deeper to figure out how we can basically all get along
yes.
and how we can actually make our organizations better, because the more diversity, whether it's cultural, whatever it is,
Mhm.
our people who are younger and older, we all can come together to make the organization that much stronger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so in the workplace right now, we're really seeing basically four generations that are here. We have our baby boomers. Those are our older people, usually between 69 and 77. And what I find is that a lot of those people are either our executives, our C-suite folks, our people in higher positions, or they could be people who just love working, love their jobs. There are people out there who love their jobs.
Mhm.
And we also have a subset of people who cannot afford to retire.
Mhm.
Those that, because of rising inflation, rising healthcare costs, they just cannot afford to leave the workplace. Then
Mhm.
we have us, our Gen X's. These are my people. This is my group. This is where we rah rah for these folks. And so people who are between 43 and about 58, those are our Gen Xers. Then we've got our millennials. Now these are my people. These
Yeah.
are my go-tos when I have a technology question, when I want to kind of know what's hot in the street. These are
Mhm.
the people I'm going to. They're usually about 27 to 42. And so these are our early career people. They are closer to the research if you're in an academic environment, or even if you're in a corporate environment, they're closer to their education.
Mhm.
And then I hate to use the word babies, but the babies of the bunch are our Gen Zs. Those people are 26 and younger, and
Mhm.
we don't know a lot about them yet because they're just coming into the workforce. So we've got people who we can look at as, the age of our grandparents, and then we've got people we look at as our children, and we're all supposed to come together, just like in college, the great social experiment, and just figure it out. But it takes more than just figuring it out to make the workplace successful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and when you said that, like how are we holding all groups in high esteem? Yeah, I think that's something to think about because I was just watching football the other day and I was on FaceTime with Lauren and I was like, is that the coach? I was like, he looks so young. She was like, who are you talking about? And she was like, yeah, I guess. But I know because in my lens, I'm still thinking everyone should be is my age. Anyone younger than me looks young, perhaps, but he wasn't. But I've done that. I'm like, what, is that the coach? Is that the person doing that? They look so young. And to your point, you have to recognize, okay, you're a lot older than you might feel or think that you are in any given moment. There are a lot of younger people that are doing very big, amazing things. So yeah, it's a question about how holding in high esteem people that are younger and people that are older.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because even though I had to kind of check myself when I was talking to a younger colleague, I remember the days when parents would ask me, how old are you? Do you have
Oh,
kids?
yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to help them with their children or trying to give them support and therapy. And they're like, oh, do you again?
Right.
And what I'm like, well, I do know such and such and such and such.
Right.
And so wanting to make sure that I value their opinions, their thoughts, their perspectives the same way I would expect that they would value me just
Mhm.
on the just because I'm older.
Yeah, yeah. That's a
So
very
yeah,
So what do you see, Roz? What are some of the biggest differences that you've noticed across generations?
technology.
Mm,
Technology, the use of technology and communication. So, those of us who are Gen X and boomers, we didn't grow up with technology.
okay.
We had to wait for some things. We call Gen Z and millennials kind of the microwave generation. They've never had to wait for anything. They don't know what call waiting is. They don't know what a busy signal is. They don't know, oh, we're going to have to wait a few minutes before this to happen. So, the biggest thing that I've noticed is communication patterns
Mhm.
and technology. So when it comes to communication patterns, I typically see that our and let me give this as a disclaimer.
Mhm.
These are generalizations. We
Yeah.
work in patterns. We work in our brains function in patterns. If I see a red light, 9 times out of 10 means to stop.
Mhm.
Same thing with when we classify or organize people. We want to be very careful because not everybody is going to fit this prototype. We will
Mhm.
always have outliers, and people will say, that's not me. I'm
Mhm.
Gen X and I don't think that way. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we're very clear about that when interacting with varying groups and
Mhm.
not always assume that one group is one person because they belong to a certain group is going to behave in a certain way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, with that being said, with regard to communication, the boomers and Gen X's, we may prefer an email or an in person, God forbid, meeting. Whereas our millennials and our Gen Zs are like, what do we need to meet for? Can't you put that in an instant message or can't you put that in an email or can't we do a FaceTime chat? And our younger generations also are used to direct and immediate communication and feedback. I have a younger person on my team and she will video chat me in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
Not, if I video chat someone, I typically, hey, can you video chat for a second? I don't just click and then expect for you to appear. But they are very different. It is expected that you are there, you are able to communicate instantaneously.
Mhm.
They also expect technology to be seamless. No glitches, no bumps where we're like, okay, I'm trying to figure this out. How does this work? Okay, wait a minute. This is what program? They want technology at work to be as seamless as it is at home.
Mhm.
And then with communication styles, most of us that are in our 40, or, well, Lord, I'm 50 now, in our 50s.
It's it's
most
hard to remember, honestly.
Lord have mercy. Most of us in our 50s, we don't want to be micromanaged. We really don't want, we don't need a lot of feedback. Just let me know generally. We doing okay? We're not. I've noticed that the younger generations want immediate feedback and a lot of it. They
Mhm.
want to know that they're doing well. They want to know how they can improve. They want to know that they are functioning as part of a group, which is very
Mhm.
different.
Yeah, yeah, and I have
Very.
seen that even with my students in this class. Like at the beginning, we went through kind of ground rules for the class and expectations from each other. And one of the things they asked of me, they were like, "We love, we want to be in communication." They're like, "If there's something that's going well or not, like we'd love to know about it." Basically, that kind of instant feedback to a certain
Mhm.
extent or lots of communication about what's expected. That was definitely one thing that they requested, which I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. It's not something I think I would have done had they not asked, but I'm glad I asked because I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely do that. So I think I could see that need for more. And to your point, it may just be the way they grew up. They're used to more instant communication, used to more instant feedback. And so they're looking for more from, the people they work with as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I know me, you know, if there's no feedback, then I'm thinking everything's going well. We're doing
No
well.
news is good news. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
I'm not used to like, was this right? Did I do this? And I get that from a lot of my younger team members. And I'm like, and I'm trying to shift how I respond to that request for feedback because my initial response was trust your instincts, trust your training. You typically know more than the person you're sitting in front of in terms of theory. But then I
Mhm.
had to go back and look at it and say, okay, they're looking for specific feedback. Yes, this is how we handle this. You did a great job in this capacity, as opposed to more global, general, you got this, girl, you got this, man,
Mhm.
kind of feedback.
Mhm.
They want very specific feedback.
Yeah, which, and I feel like this too. And I think one of the organizations I was in, we did a study and found this, that sometimes the younger generation is more vocal about something, but it's something that would honestly help all of us. So I may not request a lot of feedback, but if you gave me specific feedback, it would help me. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like they're requesting it. So it's maybe forcing us to do it more often, but it's the kind of thing that, probably would help all of us, really.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about the younger generation is that they speak up.
Hmm.
They absolutely speak up. They don't like it, they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
They see something that needs to be changed, they want to have a discussion. Where a lot of older generations, we have been ingrained just to kind of keep it moving. Don't rock the boat. Go with the status quo.
Hmm.
Where they are like, that's
Yeah.
not working for me.
Uh-huh. Yes, exactly. I
Yeah.
like that. I appreciate that. Again, that's what we found in that study, that they were speaking up about things that, yeah, everyone kind of wanted it, but they were the ones that were willing to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Other people felt like
Yeah.
that's just not something you do. You kind of
Mhm.
stuff it. You just kind of, shoulder on kind of a thing. You can figure it out. Whereas they were
Yeah.
like, no, this isn't right, which I always appreciated.
Yeah.
What's something you appreciate about the older generations, do you think? The older generations that you get a chance to interact with or work with?
I appreciate the longevity.
Mm,
I admire that on some level. If it was really good for you, I admire the longevity, the fact that the loyalty that many of our older workers have to their company or their organization.
mhm.
They literally are ride or die.
Mhm.
You don't
Yeah.
speak ill about my company. I worked there for 25, 30 years.
Uh-huh.
I love that. I love that they are committed, they are proud employees, and oftentimes they are just very dedicated to the work that they've done and continue to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. It's something in the work ethic. Like there's, I feel like they have maybe a deeper commitment to the work ethic. They find value in it, kind of this working hard mentality. And just not as much like the younger generation is more willing to say that's not right. I also value this idea of like I can just kind of get it done. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of like I'm just gonna get it done, figure it out. Kind of this internal strength, I guess.
Yeah.
This kind of internal ability to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, the work ethic is unmatched. I had a conversation with a friend, and he is kind of hovering around Gen Z millennial. His mom is definitely a boomer. And I said, well, we'll be there about 5 o'clock. He was like, well, I have to make sure mom isn't working. He was like, why is she working on a Friday at 5 o'clock? That is so boomer behavior.
Really?
I
I
said, boomer
Is
behavior, because she was going to stay at her job until she
it?
got the work done, whether
Yeah.
it's 5 o'clock on a Friday or 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. Where he, as a kind of cuspy Gen Z millennial, was like, I'm done. It's 5 o'clock. It's the weekend.
Yes.
Toast it up. It's like,
Well,
we're done.
and I can appreciate both of those, honestly. I can appreciate both of those perspectives, actually. The like, let's work and let's hustle, let's get it done. And I can appreciate it is 5 o'clock, let's toast it up.
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
mad at either one of those.
But when it was boomer behavior, I was like,
Yeah, I feel like I definitely engage in some boomer behavior from time to time. Being Gen X, we're kind of between the two. So, I feel like we can lean either way a little bit.
but I will say one of the other things about boomers, and I noticed this for my parents, when I was thinking about career change or moving from one position to another, that they were like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? You're
Yeah.
gonna leave such and such and go somewhere else? I'm like, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like that was unconscionable to them. Like they worked the same job for years.
Hmm.
And as the generation is changing, that's so different now. So
Yeah. Yeah. The stability. There was much higher stability, I think,
mhm,
value on
yeah,
stability, maybe than what we
yeah,
do today.
yes.
So, what do you think makes these interactions across generations challenging? So, when we're in work or parenting or community context, what do you think makes it most challenging?
You know, I think one of the things is the other generations don't think the other generations know what they're talking about. They've never
Mm,
experienced it, they've never lived it, and we feel that our lives are just so different. And
mm,
so we often feel like there's no common ground, and we don't take the time to find the common ground.
mm,
If you're in an organization, the common ground is to move this organization forward. So whether you are a boomer or you're Gen Z, how are we going to work together to make that happen? If you're
mm,
at home, okay, I've got my mama who's, 50 and using slang that I'm just like, ooh, don't say that out loud. But
yes.
then I've got, we've got this teenager, but we still have to work as a cohesive unit. How do we make that?
Mhm.
So, oftentimes, we sit there and we're like, they don't understand. They
Mhm.
just don't understand,
Yeah.
or they don't get it. They keep living. You'll see what
Mhm.
happens. Those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, because that's one of those areas that I was on a Bible study this week, and one of the members of the Bible study who is probably the silent generation. So she's in her 90s. And
Oh,
yeah, and she was saying like how much she loves being around younger people. She was like, "Oh my God." She was like, "I get so much energy from it. I love, learning and hearing other people's perspectives." And I was like, that's really what I was thinking about our talk. I was like, that's a better, healthier mindset, which is
yeah.
like instead of me thinking what's different, it's like, what can I learn? Like, how can I enjoy this difference as opposed to, thinking about how it gets in my way? Like, how can I learn from it and enjoy it? So when people say something that's so different, how can you kind of double click on and ask more, learn more? And I was
Right.
like, man, she's in her 90s with this perspective. I was like, oh, man, just the idea that she doesn't find it frustrating. She finds it intriguing, I think is the way she would
Yeah,
describe it.
I think that's awesome, but I think it's easier to do in social situations that are not
Yeah.
high stake than it is in more employment type of environments, particularly if you think about the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of your boomers retired immediately because the demand for technology
Mhm.
rose exponentially and they couldn't keep pace. And to
Mhm.
have to ask, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I set up this online course? How do I work remotely? How do I do that? They didn't want to be seen as less than
Mhm.
because they didn't know. And I struggle with that sometimes because some of the technology requirements, I do depend on some of my younger colleagues for that. And I'm like, ooh, I have another technology question. Ooh, I gotta ask this one. I gotta ask that one. I wish in the workplace I could be more like your friend in the silent generation and say,
Mhm.
show me how that works. Tell me
Yeah.
more about that
Mhm.
without feeling threatened in my career, thinking
Mhm.
that I'm going to be pushed out by this younger generation. And I think that's a
Mhm.
real fear in the working world.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I remember one place I was talking to, they were doing, I don't remember what they called it, but it was basically like cross mentoring. So it was like, they intentionally had people mentored across different generations. And the idea was that the older generation could teach them like how things work here and how to advance and all those kind of things. And the younger generation could teach them like what's on the minds of younger people, technology, like all
Yeah,
those things. And I was like, oh, that's a great way to
yeah.
to kind of bridge the gap and make it beneficial across for sure. So
And actually, that's what the research says is one of the
hmm,
best ways to bridge the generational gap at work is cross mentorship.
hmm,
Yep,
okay. I
yep.
could
Those
see
young
that.
people who can breathe fresh wind, fresh fire. Older folks can tell you, listen, this is
Yeah.
how it works here.
Yes, yes. I
So
love that. What are other strategies you think about people that are in at workplace or leading people that are different generations? Like what are other things you think people can think about to bridge this gap?
I think the biggest thing is to establish a culture of respect
Mm,
where everyone's opinion and their thoughts and their experiences are valued. I think that's where we lack. That's where we lack the most, and that's where the most difficulty comes in. I mean, Aretha Franklin said it most: "All we want is a little respect, no matter how old we are." And I think that is something that's lacking. And also what respect means, because to be respectful is different across the generations.
Mm,
Many of the older workers may think that's, silence and compliance, where many of the younger generations think, it's asking questions and talking more.
mm,
So we really have to open that communication up to figure out what it is that, the Gen Zs want and need in a work environment versus what the boomers need, and working together so that we can have a mutually respectful and collaborative relationship.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to do. And also, varying modes of communication, mixing in person. I feel like that's a dirty phrase at this
Yeah.
point. Mixing
Yes.
in-person meetings and communication with, the technology, the group chats, the teleconferencing. We really have to integrate that, because the younger generation, they want technology, they want seamless technology. They don't. I was watching something on CBS this morning, and I think it was Bloomberg who was talking, and he's like, everybody needs to come back to work right now. And
Mm,
another mayor from another city said that he thinks eventually 70% of the workers will be remote. And Bloomberg, again, he's a boomer. He said, "How? I can't work with you over FaceTime. I can't work with you over Zoom. I
mm,
want people in the office so that
mhm,
I can develop a collaborative relationship. How can I write a reference or a recommendation for you? And I've never seen you in my life."
mm,
So, again, just, a flexible work environment, some
mhm,
in person, some virtual, so that people, because our work life balance is very different across the generation. So we
mhm,
want to make sure that we are addressing that. And also the culture, you know,
mm,
boomers, Gen X suits, ties, business casual versus the Gen Z's jeans and sneakers,
yeah.
doesn't matter. Doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. And I know in my profession, that's a big thing. They want people to dress up at work, and the younger generation, why?
Right. Tell me more. Yes,
Yes,
exactly. Tell me more. Yeah.
delve into that. I'm
Mhm.
covered, I'm respectful, I don't have any crazy logos on. Tell me why I need to be in, a button down shirt every day.
Mhm.
How does that
Mhm.
impact my performance?
Yeah.
And really be able to have those conversations and not leave it as, because I said so. That's
Mm,
our culture.
yeah.
That's going to get you, you're going to lose employees that way.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is it's funny. So one of the things, so I'm teaching this class now, which is so fun because it's getting me to interact more with this generation, younger generation. And I think your idea about variety in the work environment so everyone can get their needs met makes a lot of sense. Because even several of them who were younger said like someone had done just remote for an internship, someone had done in person. And it seemed like the people who were happiest were those people that were in some version of a hybrid. So it's not
Mhm.
you have to be in person because that didn't make sense. Being completely remote, they said didn't make sense either because it's harder to kind of get to know people, form
Mhm.
relationships. So I think those, to your point about variety, those people that were working in environments that encourage some of all. Like, yeah, you're sometimes remote when it makes sense, you're in person. They had a rationale behind it, were the environments that people really learned the most, appreciated the most, and probably were most drawn to in terms of
Mhm.
going back to work.
Mhm.
So I think there is something in this, just like, let's not do stuff just to do stuff. Like, let's have a rationale for it. And if you can do things that allow everyone to get some of their needs met, um, you're probably in a better place. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you have employees who are happy.
Yeah.
And that's key. I mean, but again, that's a generational thing too, because
Mm,
the younger generations, they are more in tune with their mental health. They are
mm,
more in tune with work-life balance. They're
mm.
also more in tune with their own values, their own beliefs, their own morals. And if they don't align with the company's morals, values, and beliefs, they are quick to exit stage left
Mhm.
with no hesitation. Where, the older generations, I'm like, ooh, my retirement. Oh, let's
Yeah.
talk about my health care. Ooh, what about this? They're
Mm,
like, yeah, this this doesn't fit me. This is not
Hmm.
in alignment with who I am.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess flexibility gives you a higher chance of getting more of those needs met. Like as a business, it's like if I'm flexible, I have a higher likelihood of letting this really diverse group of people have their needs met in this
Yeah,
environment.
yeah. And
Yeah.
hopefully keep employees in place. Because the
Mm,
worst thing to have to do is to retrain, rehire, reintegrate people. Just, high turnover is not good for anybody. I don't care what
mm,
level of employment. High turnover is hard on an organization,
yeah.
not just the HR people, but also the workers. You
Hmm.
know, you have to somebody has to pick up the slack.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough.
I love that. So let me ask you this, just kind of a final question. Like what thoughts would you want to leave people with in terms of generations and generations at work or just working, living across generation?
Be flexible. Be
Mm,
flexible. I think that's the biggest thing. Be flexible, be willing to learn like your 90-year-old Bible study member.
mhm,
Be excited about new opportunities to learn, even if it stretches you beyond your boundaries. And I really think we have to remember that everyone can teach us something. Whether
yeah.
you're 75 and you're the CEO of a company, or you're 25 and you just walked in as the new IT person, you both have value, and those have to be acknowledged and
Mhm,
honored in your workplace, so that everyone has a workplace where they feel that they're integral parts of making it happen. The
mhm.
moment someone feels that they are not valued is the moment that they disengage, and very soon after they most likely will exit. So
Mhm. Yeah. Valuing others. Yeah, it's a challenge for all of us and also a beautiful opportunity really to value everyone that we get a chance to interact with for what they bring,
yeah,
whatever
and I
that
think
might be.
regardless of where we are in the diversity continuum, I think valuing people is where it is. We have to remember that the more diverse we are, the more it helps us, and more it helps our company, the more it keeps our ear to the grindstone, so we know what the streets are saying, as the young people say. I don't know, Lauren, was that right? No.
She'll let us know if not.
Okay,
Trust and
let
believe.
me know, Lauren.
Yes. Hmm.
So yeah, but I definitely think that's a huge piece.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining. Let me ask you this. I want to do a lightning round at the end that lets people just learn more about you and just get to know you as a person better. So, three quick questions. One is, what's one thing that helped you figure out what you wanted to do? So, like, what's one thing that helped you figure out you were interested in school psychology, psych, like working in this profession?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Because
Is
right nowadays, I think I want to be a goat herder. Um, in all honesty, I love children. I love working with children. I love seeing children and families succeed. One of the reasons I went into school psychology is because during one of my internship rotations, I was in a hospital setting, and the first question we had to ask is, "Who's your insurance provider?" And it really dictated what type of assessment, what type of therapy, what type of services I could provide to you, whether, based upon your health insurance. Then I
Mhm.
realized in the schools, it doesn't matter. You can have the best health insurance in the world, or you could be on public assistance. I can still give you the best of what I have. And
Mhm.
that's what I love. I can serve and service every single person, no matter who you are.
Oh, wow. I never really thought about that, about
Mhm.
public schools being a bit more equalizing than in terms of resources than
Well,
places.
theoretically, yes.
Theoretically. Yes, I get it. Theoretically. Yes. Uh-huh. Absolutely. Okay. I love that. So what is one of your favorite books or movies?
Ooh, my favorite book is The Alchemist.
Hmm.
I love The Alchemist. Um, don't judge me, y'all, but my favorite movie is The Sound of Music.
Listen, don't let me start singing in here. Don't let me
The
start
hills are
singing.
alive. You hear me?
Oh my God. every holiday season, every Christmas. I'm like, is the Sound of Music on yet? Yes. Okay.
Sure. It could be a random Tuesday. That and you know what else? New Jack City. Uh, You gotta love the dichotomy of my
Okay.
life.
I was gonna say the fact that you said Sound of Music and then brought back New Jack City is one of the many reasons I love you.
Oh, we have to be multifaceted people here, right?
Clearly, very clearly you are. Yes, and I've never read The Alchemist, so now I got to put that on my list of things.
It's,
Okay.
oh, and The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
Oh,
That is outstanding. Even this morning, I remembered one of the things she said. My little one, I had finished working out. I was a sweaty mess,
hmm
and he wanted to snuggle. So I literally took off my clothes. I wrapped myself in a robe and a towel, and I held him for a few minutes because he wanted to snuggle. So anytime
oh,
he says, "Mommy, can you play with me? If I can make it happen, I'm gonna do it." So yeah.
oh, yeah. I do love that book. That is an exceptional read. If you ever read that, yeah. Okay. And last thing, what is one thing you wish parents understood if when it comes to their children and school or anything in that realm?
Usually they're trying their best. They're trying the best. And that sometimes, I know Russell Barkley says this all the time. He's like an ADHD guru. He says oftentimes the kids who need the most loving will try to get it in the most unloving ways.
Mm,
So when our children are, did that not? Yes. Even okay, so let's go on to Black Panther when they say that a child will burn the village down to feel its warmth. Same
yes.
concept. So oftentimes, and I try to remember this with mine, when we're melting down, when we're a mess, what do you need? There's
Mm,
a need that's being not being met in this space. And I think that's for all of us.
mhm.
When we are a mess, what need is not being met? And just remembering that, kids are little people. There's an unmet need, and let's try to address that before we go directly to discipline. Let's try
Mhm.
to address the unmet need.
Oh, that's good. Yes, for I mean, because as soon as you said that, I was thinking children, and then I was putting myself in work context in leading teams. And that I see that in teams as well. That it's in an unloving way, but they're trying to get love, they're trying to get acceptance, they're trying to get belonging, they're trying to get security. Like it's something. There's a need under there. They're trying to get met, even though it may show up in a really, you know,
Unloving
unloving
way.
way. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. Yes. Thank you for the wisdom. I love this.
Oh,
So, thank you again so much for joining. I love you dearly. You know that. You can find Dr. Roz on Instagram do you remember your Instagram handle?
ask Dr. Roz. That's it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because I just realized in my notes I had an underline where I was supposed to put Ask Dr. Roz. Ask Dr. Roz. So you can find Roz on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram as well at Arlene_pace.green. Thank you all so much for joining and be well.